Infomaniac, relentless, the Tiger Woods of data visualization. If your work generates as much attention and gathers as many accolades as Lisa Strausfeld has, it seems you also accumulate some awesome monikers. The one which might be most apt is modern-day detective. It implies systematic, rigorous methodology, and it speaks of intent, to uncover patterns, to make sense. I first saw Lisa Strausfeld's work in 2006. It was a cover image for a New York Times Magazine piece about the challenge for intelligence agencies in interpreting the massive data they collected. Asked to create an illustration, Strausfeld and her collaborator responded instead with a computer program, a three-dimensional visualization that allowed multiple vantage points from which to make sense of the data. Lisa Strausfeld's experiences and accomplishments are wide-ranging. She studied art history and computer science, went on to a graduate degree in architecture, later studied with Muriel Cooper in the Visible Language Workshop at the MIT Media Lab. She spent 10 years as a partner at Pentagram and is now Bloomberg's global head of data visualization. What I find most impressive about Lisa is her curiosity, her instinct to engage with information and structure it to generate the understanding that ultimately can facilitate meaningful engagement. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lisa Strausfeld.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. I love that intro. Thank you, Christina. And thank you, Penny Stamps. I look forward to seeing you and meeting you. Hi. Okay. This is new, the glasses. Okay. All right, I'm here to share my work. This title could be a lot better. You'll see I'm quite critical. Okay. So for my work, I've always strived for fulfillment, meaning, passion, about the means as well as the end result. And as long as that passion was commercially viable, meaning I could get paid for it, which was important to me, I was good to go. And here's a simple visualization of this. This includes my family and my love of shoes. And of course, this is where I aspire to be. Whoops. Okay. So my educational background straddled art and technology, and I learned to program in college in the 80s while I was studying art and art history. And in hindsight, it's really been the single most empowering influence on my work and my career. I just realized this before this talk. Thank you to Brown University and Andy Van Dam. I was always shy and, of course, female, and I needed all the empowerment I could get. I also truly fell in love with the idea of designing systems rather than artifacts. I love the practice of encoding design rules about size, color, motion, and attaching an input like live data and being surprised and delighted by what emerges. It's magic, and it still is. So I'm actually quite surprised to find myself straddling the worlds of art and design and technology in the exact same way today. I honestly thought things would merge a lot more than they have. And I also thought, and I have never talked about this publicly, I also thought I would have a lot more female peers in technology. After studying art, computer science, and architecture, I finally found my passion and calling in 1993 at the Media Lab at MIT, and it was called data visualization. At the time, Richard Warman, who apparently spoke here, had just started TED, the Technology Entertainment Design Conference, and coined the term information architecture. I also learned about Edward Tufte, who published his first book in 1983. And lastly, Xerox PARC was pioneering the creation of multidimensional interactive data visualizations using OpenGL on SGIs, which is basically 3D programming languages on 3D graphics workstations. And these guys were my heroes. They're still around and still pioneering the domain of data visualization in interesting ways. My advisor at MIT was Muriel Cooper, a graphic designer in her late 60s. This is her brilliant logo for MIT Press, designed in 1952. She ran a design and technology research group called the Visible Language Workshop from the late 70s until her death in 1994, and I was privileged to be among her last students, and she had a profound impact on me and my work. When I left the Media Lab, I embarked on a career in data visualization and was paid for it for about 4 years. And then it seemed to me, at least, that the field went away in the year 2000. This is from Quokka Sports, as you can see, in 1999, a visualization, a leaderboard of a motorsports race. You'll see this come up again in some recent work. So I don't know if you remember this time. There was Visual Thesaurus. These are not my projects, but these were projects of the time. There was Hyperpolic Browser. There was the Smart Money Market Map by Martin Wattenberg from IBM. And then what happened? So to answer that question, I first have to clarify the definition of data visualization, at least as I see it. So data visualizations have historically provided two purposes for two audiences. To provide explanation for the uninitiated and exploration for the expert. So let's see. So the former type of data visualization is typically an editorial product, a news product, and includes the infographic, both static and interactive versions, and the latter is typically a software product, and it's usually interactive. And then they have these different features. Oops. Okay, I'll go back to this one. And here's some examples. They're both, one's from Business Week and the other is from the Bloomberg Terminal, which is a big exploratory network of data. These forms, the explanatory and the exploratory data visualizations, have two distinct legacies as well. The editorial legacy goes back hundreds of years and overlaps with the history of graphic design. And I was more familiar, of course, with the technology-driven legacy, which is the one I just shared with you, and became familiar with while at MIT. As we know, data visualization has been quite successful in connection with editorial. The New York Times has an amazing team, The Guardian, The Washington Post. But what happened to the exploratory data visualizations? They kind of went away. They went back into the enterprise, into businesses, and we had a 5-year period where we had we had about 5 years where we had data visualizations for the consumer, but then they disappeared. And this was actually confirmed for me in 2008 when MoMA presented the show Design in the Elastic Mind. There was an entire gallery devoted to data visualization and an amazing suite of products, but none of them were consumer-facing. They were all done in research labs and universities, and most with proprietary data. This is actually just one image of the project that Hannah mentioned, which was this series of data illustrations I created with a former student named Nick Sears for the New York Times, and they accompanied this story which covered intelligence about terrorist networks. I was teaching information visualization during those years and often used one of the very few public sources of information that existed, which was the CIA World Factbook. But truly, at that time of the MoMA show, everything was changing, and there were a lot more publicly available data sets going on online. And then in 2009, the US government created the Open Government Directive, requiring all federal agencies to release at least 3 high-value data sets in a limited amount of time, all showing the administration's commitment to transparency, participation, and collaboration. And I guess at that time, they didn't have so many website development problems. Anyway, this is when things finally shifted in the field and for me. At Pentagram, where I had been since 2002, in addition to rounding out my design education, I spent nearly 10 years doing all sorts of interactive design work, treating most projects like data visualization projects, and here are a few examples. All of this is kind of leading up to some recent work that I'm excited to show you from Bloomberg. So I treated architecture portfolio sites, like this one for Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, as interfaces to relational databases, which is essentially what they are. I always rejected the page model for websites preferring the app or tool model, which has finally caught on, thanks to Apple. And navigation in these projects leads not to section fronts and pages, but filters and sorts of projects. Let's see. And here's another example, another architecture website, also very app-like, for a design architecture studio called Ennead. This time there are more object or card types, not just projects, but partners and topic cards, and they still sort and filter. I might fast forward this. Anyway, you get the idea. And here's another grid. I love grids. Visualizing the objects in the collection of the Museum of Arts and Design. This was a prototype, so the real one is still there. Note the similarity in filtering and sorting. It works, and it's kind of universal, this type of navigation. So the design challenge for these projects becomes one of differentiating the experience so that it has a unique identity fitting the client or an institution it belongs to. I learned all about identity at Pentagram, which was incredibly valuable. And one of my last projects at Pentagram, ironically, was its website, another collection of work spanning over 40 years, filtered and sorted. I'll just wait till this shows a filter or a sort. Anyway, you can see there are these kind of universal modes of organizing information. And again, I treated all of these projects as information projects, effectively. This is going to show my sort of favorite view of Pentagram work, which is the marks, the identities. And now we're looking at marks for, oh, we're sorting, okay. So you get the idea. Okay. Finally, at the end of my year, the last couple years at Pentagram, I did start to get some data visualization work, and this is a project for GE, which I may not talk about too much, except to say I realized it took me 2 years to make the decision to leave Pentagram. It was very difficult. I loved being there. But I do think that Pentagram's focus is identity work, and the partners really crossed into all forms of digital, which is how I kind of built my business in the early years. And I really was so inspired by all the data that I saw online. Okay, as this is going, I'll just tell you one thing about this project, which prepared me for how difficult data visualization is. We were trying to create some meaning out of home appliance usage and tried all sorts of visualizations of usage geographically, and you could see that it was not that interesting, that there was more air conditioning used in the South, and anyway, we weren't getting anywhere. So this project became very focused on units, and again, it taught me something very valuable, which is that it takes a lot of work to the design is in some ways the easy part of these projects. It takes a lot of work to sort of figure out what you want to communicate, what's interesting. And in this case, what was interesting is just looking at energy consumption in terms of what I call kind of gilt units. Dollars, at least we can sort of understand and relate to dollars a lot more than kilowatt hours. The gilt units are gallons of gas, so we converted energy consumption for each one of these appliances into gallons of gas. And that's when it started to get interesting, and we could start to think of gas-guzzling appliances. So Major League Politics. Again, I left, when I was working with sports data in 1999, I was not that interested in sports. I love sports, and I love that it's a kind of consumer, there are all these consumer opportunities to visualize data. But I really wanted to work with government data. I wanted to do something meaningful to try to get into that other circle. And mainly because I'm too apathetic about government activity, what's going on. I find myself forcing myself to get myself to the polls and even to vote in all our elections, and I just wanted to give some more purpose to that. So Major League Politics was really inspired, again, by covering government activity like a mass media spectator event. Elections right now are covered that way, but what happens when elected officials take office? We don't really cover it very much. And at the time, of course, there were these amazing data sets online, GovTrack, Open Congress, data about every session of Congress, every moment of every piece of legislation. So Major League Politics, again, the goal was this online forum of data-driven journalism to visualize live historical data about congressional activity with a primary goal of entertainment. We also wanted to give it some sense of urgency. And the end goal was about getting people like me to engage with government activity for a mere 60 to 90 seconds a day, which is actually quite ambitious, in the same way we engage with the weather, sports, and the stock market. I can only show a couple screenshots of what we created because we're still trying to get it going. It's a side project that I haven't had time to work on while at Bloomberg. We have an agreement that I can still continue with it in some form, but I hope to bring it back to center once again. It had to do with kind of the personalities of members of Congress. At the time, we were working with the 112th Congress. This is a visualization of the members of the last Congress, again, by their blue and red or left and right leaning on 4 categories of issues: international, domestic, economic, and social. And you can kind of see, again, you can see how the Republican Maine senators appear very centrist in this view. And this is actually using actual legislation data, and again, something I'd love to return to. But I got distracted by another opportunity. In the spring of 2011, before I was about to raise money for Major League Politics, Bloomberg came knocking and presented an opportunity I simply could not pass up. I knew this was the time for data visualization finally. I'd been waiting for a long time, and I knew that Bloomberg was the place. So I decided to build a startup inside of Bloomberg and left Major League Politics on the side. I had had Bloomberg on my radar for about 10 years because I worked on the headquarters with Paula Scher. We were asked to design static and dynamic signage for the new building, which I currently work in. We created a numerical typeface to carry the logotype identity through the space. We designed not just the artifact of the typeface and signs, but a system that would take headlines that almost always have numbers in them and stream them through the space on many displays, including this one on the 6th floor. Okay. So this is why I joined Bloomberg. And it's the first time I've ever been in a media news information company. It's amazing to be around all these journalists and analysts. So I started in January of 2012, and now we're a team of 12 people and growing, and we call ourselves Bloomberg Visual Data. Our mission is to bridge the gap between explanatory infographics and exploratory data visualizations, because we feel the ideal reader user experience is, once they're engaged with an idea, ideally from a snappy headline, the ideal experience is to move from explanation to exploration. And at the moment, our team is producing both types of data visualizations, but we're starting to blur the boundaries, which we feel is key to our potential and future success. So this is all online. We have what we call our products here, and infographics. We have a really talented small team of 3 graphic journalists who produce infographics almost daily. So, but back to the visual data products, they're interactive software products like apps. They use live data, theoretically have an infinite shelf life, and can be periodically connected to the news cycle. And I'll show you some examples. The first one is called StateByState. And it launched a couple months before the last presidential election. And anyway, it combines a lot of data sources. It's based on some proprietary Bloomberg data, the Economic Health Index, And it's really about taking a measure of the economic health of the states. There's a version of this on the Bloomberg terminal. Actually, we see Michigan there as I guess that was the second healthiest at the time of that viewing. Anyway, this also takes data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We have kind of a live pipe to the BLS, and it was taking live, updating data, again, before the election from Real Clear Politics. We also wanted to get, I'm showing you all these websites because all of this data exists, but it's in all these forms that are not that easy to access. We wanted to get data about members of Congress. Again, all of this stuff is online. Sometimes it's PDFs. That's what they call. I guess that fulfills the open government directive to put PDFs online. This is a view. This is kind of part of our process. This is a view of our unemployment data in Excel, and you can see this little blip. This is a spike in unemployment in Louisiana, I think in Mississippi after Katrina. Okay, so state by state. I'm going to show you some live demos. This one is live, but I'll just walk you through this running video. Okay, so the first view of state by state, this is a very wonky product. I mean, I love it, but you'll see that we sort of take on the storytelling. We take on storytelling a little bit more in our recent work. So the way this product launched, again, it contains information about every state, but the story of the election was really about swing state unemployment. And so when you came to this, and it was truly habit forming for me leading up to the election, and I really saw these states, these swing states, and you can see what a swing state is, in the presidential margin of victory row here, which is basically a state that went from Republican to Democrat in the last couple elections. This is going quickly, but this shows voting history from the year 2000 to the present, from president, governor, Senate, and House by party, red and blue. And again, these swing states really show a lot of movement between parties. Again, in the couple months again that we launched right before the election, it was fascinating to see. I mean, Michigan really shifted because the unemployment numbers were really, coming down from that peak. And we have yet to find as compelling a story with this tool since the election. We put all this data in here, and it's actually caused us to rethink how we build these products. It was almost too big and too broadly scoped. I call it kind of like the Swiss Army knife view, Swiss Army knife tool. So again, there's data about the economy, about elections, about the workforce. And everything is transparent and it's updated as soon as these numbers come out from their various news sources, which you can see. And there's a lot there. One of my favorite views, I mean, I learned a lot about what's going on in this country through this tool. I learned a lot about North Dakota's. I mean, now I think everyone's familiar with this. At the time, I didn't really understand what was driving North Dakota's economy in the way that I do now. Still the most economically healthy in the union. Okay. There's also a geographic view, more time series. Oh, that shows Michigan. Yeah, Michigan has that really kind of iconic spike and return. So the next project I'll talk about, how are we doing on time, is Bloomberg Billionaires. So at Bloomberg, there's a 14-person team of journalists and analysts whose job it is to track the world's richest people. They create these rankings daily based on the market and personal assets of these billionaires, and they also uncover hidden billionaires. It's pretty fascinating. Internally, it's called rich porn, but it actually does give you a lot of sense it gives you, it does, just watching the portfolios of these people gives you a sense of the market. It's kind of an entertaining way, almost like a sports way of understanding the market. What's amazing about this editorial team is that, again, they're not just looking at public assets. They really do a lot of digging. There was, when we started the project, a very simple version of the index online, and then a more comprehensive version on the terminal. And our team was asked to take a look at it. This is a project that, again, it's it wasn't exactly what I set out to do, but it was an amazing, almost like muscle flexing exercise for the team. I realized also the value of working with proprietary data sets makes it all easier. We kind of knew what to do. We've had a lot more challenge working with data that everyone else has. Sometimes the team kind of spins for a few months solving those problems. But here it all was. The data sets were provided to us, included personal data, changes in net worth, breakdown of stocks and assets, and as well as a confidence rating as to how sure the Bloomberg journalists were of the estimates. There's more on the terminal version, but so the team worked in these tools just to look. This was a leaderboard visualization. We looked at scatter plots. This is looking at billionaire industry to net worth. We kind of tested the ideas in some of these simple tools, and then we put it together. Citizenship and public assets, age, number of children. And then we did this thing, and this for me also really came from my experience at Pentagram. I think a lot of data visualizations, there's a tendency for them to look the same. I think they all should be given some identity so that you know what they're about, you get engaged. So we decided to illustrate the heads, and that really brought this thing to life. And we also fought for, as you'll see, moving the heads around on the screen, which I kind of love. And you'll see, I'll show you a demo of this. We have all of these metrics represented in a tabular way. This leaderboard, which you saw early on from Quokka Sports, has made it here. This is showing changes in rank over time. It's big news when, I think it was big news when Bill Gates overtook Carlos Slim as the wealthiest person in the world. We can also rank by net worth in dollars, and then you can get individual profiles. I'll show you this in a demo. Oh yeah, these are the heads rolling around. I have to show you this in motion. I remember asking the Billionaires team, is this okay? Are you comfortable with this? And they seem to be. Okay, so this is the slightly scary part. Let me see if I can get this to run. Okay, so here's Bloomberg visual data, and I'll take you through the Billionaires Index. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're good. Okay, it's a little slow. So we've made some changes. Now you can see, because it gets updated every day, you can see that Bill Gates had a very good day yesterday. And I like to do this, which is dollar change previous day. Oh wait, no, that's percent change. Dollar change previous day. And I always like to scroll to the bottom of this list and see that Merck did not have a good day yesterday. Lost almost $1 billion. And then I find out that he was the one of the PayPal finders. But maybe something happened with Tesla stock yesterday. I don't know. Anyway, so you can see a lot of things about their possessions, a little bio. This is very Bloomberg to show all of this content, transparency. And again, this is the public information, and there's some sort of inside look at private assets, and this has a confidence ranking of 4 out of 5 stars. And again, I just have to move some heads around for you. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. Okay. This is net worth plotted against industry. You can also do percentage of cash, assets, lots of cash over here. I have a lot of cash. Anyway, so you can also, let me go back to this view. You can also filter, again, the same ideas of filtering by industry. Now we're looking at tech billionaires. You'll see, if you go through this, you'll see that all of the female billionaires have inherited wealth. What's up with that? And then you can see them on a map view and finally ranked. This is a little choppy, I think, because of the connection. Okay. One last thing here. I'll show you ranking over the last quarter. There we go. And you can see that Zuckerberg actually has had quite a good quarter. I think the last we checked, he had gained 13 billion in the last quarter. Okay. So that's billionaires. Now I'm just going to stay here, I think, and show you a couple more projects. Another project we launched, I think last spring, is this project called Best and Worst. There's also an amazing rankings team at Bloomberg that ranks everything from everything on all topics. They rank careers, companies, people, places, everything. They rank states. This is the most underfunded pension plans. So Illinois is the leading state for underfunded pension plans. I looked at this earlier just to see where Michigan was. It ranks 19 in underfunded pension plans. And you can see, again, this, the team, basically, there are a lot of analysts on the team who sort of select these metrics. Where did Michigan go again? One of the things that we did, we wanted to take advantage of putting this whole collection of rankings together. So the team came up with this idea of a pivot. So every time a ranking gets added to this collection online, basically we call them all of the entities, the things that get ranked, are stored and get connected to all the rankings. So you can see Michigan. You can pivot on Michigan and see all of the 60 now rankings that feature Michigan. This was kind of interesting. And again, this transition is usually a little bit more seamless. So did you know, who knew? Michigan has the highest concentration of engineering majors. And it's number 4 in biggest lottery losers, as you can see. It's 8th, I'm afraid, in getting fatter fattest. It's always good to see who's number 1 there. Sorry, this is a little slow for some reason. Oops. Okay, we can gloat a bit. I find this really surprising. Delaware. Anyway, so let's go back to Michigan one more time. I also like to look at the bottom of the list, as I did with billionaires. Not many female seniors at work. I guess that would be a good thing. And not looking good with wage increases. Okay, anyway, this is fun to explore, and there are a handful of new rankings that go up every week. All right, so I will move to I think the last project. yeah, I'm going to take you through the last project, which is, let's see, the last project, it's a new project that's actually launching tomorrow. So I would appreciate no image tweets, if you don't mind. And it's an experimental attempt to tell a story with data. I just want to say that when I was planning to come here last year, I was a little concerned about ending with Billionaires, which we just launched, for obvious reasons, I think. And so, again, I think I love that product. I'm really proud of it, and I think I've learned a lot about how to work with editorial teams and the value of working with editorial teams. But I'm very excited about this. This is a little project, but for me, it's a nice one to end with. So we worked for this project, I'll bring it up. Oops. This is about the jobs report. And for this project, we worked with a writer from Bloomberg View, which is the opinion and op-ed site for Bloomberg. And stories about economic releases are kind of the bread and butter of Bloomberg News. I mean, I guess of all newspapers. And we wanted to use design and data visualization to help inform, this is a really critical topic right now, and even delight the reader about this typically dry topic. And again, for me, this is kind of an early sign of the promise of moving the needle ever so slightly with data visualization and making a difference. So I'll take you through this as best I can. The date actually is wrong. It's tomorrow. It will be updated with the latest unemployment numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it will be released 15 minutes after that release. So I'll just take you through it. So the idea for this was we wanted to, typically these stories are text. There's an article with text and then a chart, a little more text, a chart. So this was an idea of just, again, using our design ideas and talents to kind of bring people inside the data and connect with it. And I loved the idea of connecting opinion, especially to data. So it has a voice. There's a writer, Matt Klein. It talks about, I think the text is still changing a little bit before tomorrow. There's some people working late on this. It talks about about the jobs report and how it's important. These jobs are important because it affects our GDP. And this number, which will be expressed in the thousands tomorrow, we're seeing some recovery here, and that's the one that will be released. So the idea is things are not quite as they seem. It looks healthy on the surface, but if we take a closer look, things are a little bit different. This is kind of the graph that I'm finally actually becoming familiar with, where you're kind of seeing this. The shade is our recent recession, and you're seeing, oh, things are looking pretty good. We had job losses, but now we're kind of finally moving up. And again, everything is affected by these job reports and what the Fed is doing, interest rates, your mortgage rates, your homes. So again, we created this idea. This is going to become a kind of template and a tool to kind of walk through this data, and it all happened to be on a time series, and I love the idea that you kind of move in and out. So basically the point of this is that in order to really understand the jobs report, you have to look at this chart, which really looks at the types of jobs. And this big dip here, this green is showing manufacturing and construction jobs, I think, which we can all relate to here, have been lost, and they haven't really come back. And jobs in education and healthcare have grown steadily. On the bottom here, we show all the sources for these data, labels for the data and the sources for the data. And again, this is showing that how manufacturing and construction jobs have been lost. So we're gaining jobs. What kind of jobs? So the net effect is that we've gained in education and healthcare, but still not back with manufacturing and construction. And the reason why this is important is because the wages are lower. So weekly earnings for these types of jobs that we've recovered are not like they were for the jobs that we've lost. Anyway, I love the way this kind of takes you in and out. So again, it's sort of making the point with all these data sets. And basically concluding that we need different types of jobs. Okay. All right, back to this. Okay. I wanted to say a little bit more, but again, I liked the idea of leaving on that note, which, like I said, and I'm excited about more work that we're doing. I'm excited about sharing that jobs report here in particular, and like I said, hopefully moving the needle a little bit forward in terms of data visualization. So all these projects are visible on Visual Data, and I'm really grateful. Thank you very much for listening. And these are among the many talented people I've had the pleasure to work with.